Hi, I'm Paul. Welcome to the channel, and today I'm going to talk about travel injections you may need before travelling to Thailand, and also how you can save money when getting these injections. So carry on watching to find out. I'm going to talk about the major vaccines that you may need before travelling to Thailand, and then at the end telling you about how you can save money when you're doing so. The best, most economical way of doing it to save you a lot of money. And finally, I'll also be giving you a link where you can download all the information that I've presented here today, so it's well worth watching till the end to find out how to save money and where to get this further advice. Advice for travel injections does vary from country to country, and also over time different viruses and different recommendations come to the fore. So it's always best checking with your local health provider before travelling to work out exactly what injections you need. But what I have done below is put a link to the websites that I used before I came to Thailand for the first time to do my own personal research, and B, before making this video, so that I was up to date with the most up-to-date advice going, and this is advice from 2020. Now in the UK, the recommendation is to visit your healthcare provider at least 8 weeks before travel, but as you'll see as I talk through this video, in some cases you can save more money by doing it 7 or 8 months prior to travel. So let's get right into it straight away. The first thing to say is that whilst in the news and a pandemic at the moment of COVID-19 is in place, firstly there's no vaccine currently available for it, and secondly there's many people with an awful lot more education on this subject to make videos on, so I'm not going to be able to discuss COVID-19 in any way. Secondly, there is a virus or a disease that you can get called yellow fever. It's not prevalent in Thailand, and therefore there is no requirement before travelling to Thailand to have a yellow fever vaccination, unless you've travelled to a country elsewhere in the world where yellow fever is an issue, and then Thailand require you to have a yellow fever entry certificate. So that will depend upon your previous travel plans, and that's going to vary from individual to individual. Now, as I'm making this video, I'm coming from the UK before I got here to Thailand, and so when I was researching what I could get in the UK, we have the National Health Service in England that provides free vaccinations of certain injections that you can get. So for example, the tetanus, diphtheria and polio vaccination is one that's provided free of charge to people in the UK. Obviously in other countries you may have to pay for it, and you'll have to discuss that with your local healthcare provider. Now the tetanus, diphtheria and polio vaccine that we get in the UK does cover you for 10 years. So once you've had that vaccine at one injection, you don't need anything else for 10 years. Hepatitis A is an illness that can cause problems more so for people when they're older. It's one single injection, and it does cover you for 25 years once you have it. And it's one of those that's free in the UK for people travelling from the UK. The vaccine's recommended for anyone who's backpacking through Thailand, anyone who's staying with locals in Thailand, or anyone who either travels to Thailand frequently or is staying for a long time. So you can work out for yourself if you think A, it's something that you think is required for yourself, and B, if it is, then look at where you can get that vaccination from. Hepatitis B is another vaccine you can get, which is totally independent of hepatitis A, although in some healthcare providers they do offer you the option to have the vaccine as a combined vaccine. But I'm going to talk about it from my experience when I had the vaccine, and that's when I had two separate vaccines, because hepatitis A was free for me in the United Kingdom, but hepatitis B I had to pay for. So hepatitis B is a viral infection, and it can be caught in a number of different ways. You can catch it from any blood transfer, so if you've got a cut and come into contact with an open wound or blood from someone else, then you can catch it that way. But you can also catch it through sex, tattooing, having dentistry done if the equipment's not clean enough, and any body piercing. So without the injection, some of those things you may steer clear of having tattoos done on the street in Thailand. But hepatitis B, they reckon is about 2% of the Thai population is infected with, so it's certainly something that's worth looking into before you travel to Thailand. When I had the injection done, I had it done about 2 months before travel. And so you have an injection, you wait a week, you have a second injection, you wait 3 weeks, and then you have a third injection. But to be fully covered, if you do it that way round, you then have to wait a year and then have a fourth injection. That then gives you cover for 30 years. That's the World Health Organization's latest recommendation from what I can gather. However, this is one area where if you plan further in advance, you can save more money, because there is a process whereby you can have just 3 jabs rather than 4 to get full 30-year coverage. And that is to have 1 injection, wait a month, have a second injection, wait 6 months, and then have the third and final injection. So that needs a total of 7-month period before you travel to Thailand to get those vaccinations and to give you full coverage. But it does save you the cost of the 4th vaccination. So if you're planning well in advance, it's certainly worth doing. I'm going to talk about rabies. Now, rabies is a viral infection, and it's caught from the saliva of an infected animal. Now, that can be animals such as bats or monkeys or even dogs. And in Thailand, they reckon even domestic dogs could be carriers. So if you come into contact with animals, it's certainly something that's worth looking into. And even things, I've seen plenty of people either doing videos or going to local temples in Thailand, seeing monkeys outside, buying pots of peanuts to feed to them, and then having monkeys climbing all over your head. And it only takes a scratch and you could be infected. So it's worth considering at the very least, or if you decide not to go ahead with it, then it's maybe not wise to have monkeys climbing all over your head when you're feeding them. And believe you me, if you see monkeys doing that, they do move at an incredibly quick speed, and if there's 4 or 5 around you, and one up a tree there and one over there, it's maybe not the one you're looking at that's the one that decides, oh, I'm going to land on your head. So it's something that you do need to be aware of. Now, the rabies, if you do catch rabies, it doesn't necessarily show straight away. You don't get symptoms straight away. But without treatment, then it is usually fatal. So it's certainly an important one to be aware of. Now, if you haven't had any series of rabies injections, then you can still be treated for rabies. The injections, or the vaccines, aren't an essential part of what thing that you need, because you can be treated without them. But if you haven't had an up-to-date series of rabies vaccinations, then you need the rabies immunoglobulin injection as part of your treatment, and that needs to be administered within 2 or 3 days of coming into contact with the rabies source. And whilst that rabies immunoglobulin is going to be available in major cities, If you're in a rural area or in a far-fetched island somewhere, then they may well not have the immunoglobulin for rabies on the island. So then you end up having to rush quickly from where you are to a major city nearby, which could be a day's travel by ferry, to get that immunoglobulin if it's not available there. If, however, you've had the injections, then whilst you need treatment, you don't need that immunoglobulin to be able to survive the rabies scare that you've had. Now, the recommendation for people in terms of rabies is, if you're coming to Thailand on a long-term basis, you know, in a series of months, then it's certainly well worth considering the rabies vaccine. If you're someone who goes jogging a lot or cycling a lot, because animals quite often decide that they're going to chase you if you're cycling or running, then again, that can be a wise move. And thirdly, if you're travelling to a remote part of the country or to an obscure island, then again, the vaccine is well worth it. Typhoid is a bacterial infection that you can catch from unclean water and food. So if you're eating in quality hotels all the time, then maybe there's a very low risk of coming into contact with typhoid. But if you're eating lots of street food, you're staying for a long time, or you're living with locals who may not have a clean water supply, then it's advised. Now, typhoid is one of those injections that in the UK is free, but in other parts of the world you may have to pay for it. A typhoid jab is said to last for 10 years for you, but the amount of cover it gives you does decline over time, and the current World Health Organization recommendation is that you should get a booster every 3 years if you're still coming into contact with the possibility of typhoid being present. Tuberculosis is a disease that I believe most countries do vaccinate for automatically, and it's just one injection that gives you lifetime support. If you haven't got it, the recommendation is not to go anywhere near anyone who's got tuberculosis. But if you've not had the jab, and it's, as I say, it's a once in a lifetime jab, then it's well worth getting. Japanese encephalitis is a viral infection that's caused by mosquito bites, and it's more prevalent between dusk and dawn, and certainly much more prevalent if you're in rural areas near to sources of water such as rice fields, swamps and marshes, or even the canals that you see, the irrigation and drainage canals that you'll see in lots of parts of rural Thailand. The recommendation is that if you're travelling to Thailand for less than a month, or going mainly to urban areas, then the risk of you catching Japanese encephalitis is much lower. And the easiest way to prevent it is to use things like insect repellent or mosquito repellent sprays, and also to maybe cover up with long sleeves, long trousers to stop the chance of getting bitten. The vaccine is about 90% effective, they reckon, and you need to have one injection, wait 28 days and have a second injection, and then 7 days after that, then you should be covered against Japanese encephalitis with at least 90% reassurance on it. Now, the vaccine for Japanese encephalitis does deteriorate over time, and the recommendation is that if you're going into an area on a long-term basis again in the future where Japanese encephalitis is possibly a risk, then if you've not been vaccinated in the previous 12 months, then you need one booster injection. Malaria is an illness that you're not going to come into contact with if you stay in central Thailand, the islands or the main cities. It's more if you're going to forested and hilly areas, really around the outskirts, the edge of Thailand, around the borders. There are a number of different anti-malarial tablets that you can purchase from your healthcare provider, and they have different requirements as to how early before you go to Thailand you should start taking them, or how early before you go to an affected area you should start taking them, and how long afterwards you need to take those tablets for on a daily basis to ensure that you don't catch malaria. Now, the two that I've researched, it's not that there's only two, but the two that I've researched are Malarone, which you need to start by taking 2 days before travel, then every day while you're in an affected area, and then for a further 7 days afterwards. Now, Malarone is quite expensive, although obviously the larger pack sizes you buy of it, the cheaper that the individual tablets get. But you're talking for a 7-day travel to Thailand, you're going to need 2 tablets before, 7 while you're there, and 7 afterwards. So that would get you up to 16 tablets. But the maybe cheaper tablet for long-term use is doxycycline. Now, whilst it's maybe cheaper if you're going for a long period of time, it's also nothing like as easy to use. The reason for that is that as well as taking it for 2 days before you go to an affected area, and obviously the amount of time while you're in that affected area, you also need to take it for 28 days after you leave that area every day to make sure you don't get affected by malaria. So whilst it may save you a bit of money, it may well be a much more of a pain to have to take it on a much longer term basis. So I would speak to your healthcare provider and find which tablets they recommend and why, based on cost and ease of use. So this first screen here, looking at cost, is looking at the costs that I would incur if I was getting these injections done in the United Kingdom. These prices are as of 2020, and what I did is shop around online to find the cheapest provider for these injections before getting myself covered. Now, when you're getting these injections done, you may want to go to a school of tropical medicine or somewhere like that and feel that you're getting more reassurance by speaking to professionals there. But what you'll also find is that by going to those places, quite often the price is considerably higher than you can get it elsewhere. And at the end of the day, what they're doing for you is getting exactly the same drug, whether it's a generic version of the drug or the official original version, it's still exactly the same chemicals, and they're injecting them into your arm. And to be paying double the price just because you're going to a school of tropical medicine really doesn't make a lot of sense, in my opinion. What I did is I went to Superdrug in the UK, and the lady that I spoke to and I saw on 3 occasions when I went for the whole cycle of rabies injections with her, used to work at the School of Tropical Medicine but moved to Superdrug because it was closer to her home, and she was still doing exactly the same job, advising travellers on the injections that they need. And Superdrug I found 20, 30, maybe 40% cheaper than the prices quoted by the School of Tropical Medicine. And so these UK prices are based on what I saw at Superdrug. What I've done then is convert them using March 2020 conversions into all the other prices for America, Europe, Canada and Australia. And I've finally converted them into Thai baht so you can see what that would be in terms of Thai baht cost. And on this second screen, I've then found a healthcare provider in Thailand that is linked to a Thai school of tropical medicine, part of a hospital in Bangkok, and they offer exactly the same injections with exactly the same chemicals, and they're licensed by the same international licensing agency as all the ones I saw in the UK. And their prices, quite frankly, are ridiculously low. So if you're looking for booster jabs or one-off jabs or courses of things like anti-malarial drugs, you will find them quite often considerably cheaper if you wait till you arrive in Thailand before getting them. There's 2 reasons for this. The first reason is that because some of these illnesses are prevalent in Thailand, they automatically immunise the local population. And that means that they're buying lots of these drugs on a yearly basis from the drug companies that provide them. And the economies of scale mean that as they buy lots, they can get them at lower prices. The second reason is that a lot of drug companies price their drugs not just on their costs to produce them, but also on the affordability of those drugs in the market they're selling into. So if they're selling into the Western markets, they will charge a premium price for them because they know that people who want to travel to Asia and are paying a lot of money for air flights, for flights, can pay that extra premium to get the injections that they need before travelling. And so because of that, they will charge you more. When it comes to countries in Asia, where the standard of living or the cost of living per year is much lower and people are paid much less, then they charge less, the drug companies, when they sell them into those countries, because they know there's not quite the ability to pay as there may be in the West. So because of those two reasons combined, that's why drugs are an awful lot cheaper in Thailand. As long as you go to a properly regulated place, you're going to get the right drugs, not copies or anything dodgy, and you're going to get them at much lower prices than you'll get in the West. Now, if any of this information's been useful to you and you'd like to download it all, then there's a link in the comments below where you can go to my website, newlifeinthailand.com, and you can download the entire document, a PDF document. In fact, what I've done is if you sign up to the newsletter, you will get automatically a reply confirming you're signing up to the newsletter, and that will have the link in to download the document straight away. Now, if you want to get all this information in a document that you can take away and read at your own leisure, maybe on your daily commute in the future, then there is a downloadable version of it available. I've put in the link below a link to the website newlifeinthailand.com, and if you want to get this download, you need to sign up for our sort of monthly newsletter, and as soon as you sign up, you'll get a confirmatory email that will include the link to be able to download the documentation that you've seen on screen here. So if that's of any use to you, please come to the website and please subscribe. I hope you found this information useful. If you've got any comments or suggestions, please add them below in the comments area. But if it's been useful, please like the video, and if the channel sounds good to you, please subscribe to it and click the bell icon. And until the next time, bye for now.